다 단ong shoki ge kapla da kasin ge chuntin khaye la tangbo ye ne kapla tembare la tene ye ti tanda chitang ge ngaranso tene dungal jalwa ta dewa topate tang ngaranso chitang ge semchin je ndomban re la tene dewa topa tong dunga chalwe ki yeji yuwari besena de yuwari senjin tongchi ji senjin jala dewari hibi nimbo yuwari somne ta ye nelu de tembare ta de ye nelu de tenne ta de ji su nimba de lamjikar hebare la de ye nelu la yepa chom ji pengi yo mare de ngaran so ge tanda lobrjitime dripne ngandu churiyo marela tingandu churbe tap te kandi goge yore sena tene lamjila tengu yorela tene teacher na tanda leu niba te ta lamjika heba ta tanda lamjika heba rela lamjika heba te la jerdo tiba chimbe lamjinam yo jer tembata tene tomo maimba ta tanda jarwa zobu sonji jomdende che katama libar number 0 chujin kol ngirenje gondan tarto tawa chebar jin to so heba to tini titan dute tembate som yep nane tangbo ta tipa chimbe lonje no ge jer tembate.
This morning and in the previous few sessions, we have been talking about the stage of the ground. And so the ground is that we all sentient beings have this wish to be free of suffering and to become happy. So all sentient beings have this wish. And so the ground, the basis for this is that all sentient beings do have Buddha nature. It is present within all sentient beings. And so this is what is taught during the teaching on the ground. And so then what comes after this is the second chapter, the chapter on the path. And in the chapter of the path, just by merely having the ground, the basis within, knowing the ground and having the ground within ourselves, does that alone help? It actually doesn't just help to have that. The ground is hidden by the adventitious stains, and we are not able to make it manifest. And so what methods do we need to use to make it manifest? We need to be able to follow the path. And so this is the second chapter that is taught, the chapter on the path. And so this chapter on the path has first a section on a general teaching on the Mahayana path, a general presentation of the Mahayana path, and then second, a particular presentation of the view of the special path. And this is according to the intended meaning of the third turning of the wheel of the Dharma that teaches the definitive meaning and differentiates it well. And so that is the second section. And then following that, there is a summary of this. And so here, the first of these sections is the overview of the general Mahayana path.
Tene ta tige sachi tangbo tichin lamje nongge jer temba telaya ta nansing on the chin number 2 ye benane number 2 de bayin to song yo la de nane tangbo ta ngaran soge tanda jerdo tene senjin tangje la sanji chuji ko di yore yore de yinaya tene lam ninji minji sunam ji tsu yi hi ji tsu ni sa mguba re se na mare sa gogi yore junsin kare re se na tangaran solo lobru jitmati drip yore la lobru jitmati sal gogi yore tene ta tela junsin tanda leu tangbu ge nong de tempa tar de perna drangma ge drangse de yore de inaya nekap drangma ge songni thogi yo marela tene drangma de salna drangse de thogi yo pe de yendo tanda tene lamla zengu gre lam te ya ta lam number tapa je la zengu ge yo re.
The first section is the general teaching of the Mahayana path, and this has 10 different parts to it. And so we'll go through these in order. And the first of these is basically teaching that here sentient beings do have the Dharmakaya of a Buddha within themselves. And yet, does that mean that we don't have to follow the path and gather the accumulations of merit and wisdom? It doesn't mean that. We do need to follow the path and accumulate the accumulations of merit and wisdom. And the reason for that is that the Dharmakaya is hidden by the adventitious stains. And so we need to get rid of these adventitious stains. And so as we discussed this morning in the first chapter, there's the example of the honey and the bees. And so there's the honey, but we can't get it because the bees are in the way. And so we need to find some way to scare off the bees, and then we will be able to get the honey. And so just as in that example, we need to make efforts at the path. And the path that we need to make efforts at is the completely pure path.
Tene ta te ta bu ga lam te la tsember se pe kap sala ya ta kap nder sa chi ni pa te la kare song yo re sen Rangtong to pa ta wa number ta pa nam da tem ba de la ta te la Rangtong tong yen tong number ni e pe na ne tene Rangtong tong yen tong ni bo te ngal de ba ma yin ba Rangtong la yen tong gu ge ya pa ta yen tong la Rangtong gu ge ya pa yin be cher na Kapdar ya tangu season na ne Rangtong to betawa number tapa ji gugi ware tangbo ta te ya tene Rangtong to betawa number tapa khandi ji gugi re se na tene chu tam ji ranging ki tongba yin ba te tene chu tam ji ranging ji madu tongba yin ba te to gugi ware te ngi par to pa cham da yin ma ji tha che ne ta toni re sambe ngi hi che par chen ji je gugi Tony re sambe ngi hi che par chen che ya de la kare ong yo re se na tene sanji cham de ka ye on de se na ka kholo par ba yum hera je paru de chamba ten ju ge ndo ten so la ndo je pa ndo du pa ndo ringbo tene hin du pa la so pa la tene tu sam ton nyam len se na ta de de ne rong tong ta wa number ta pa to to ge ya pa kam der sam nang kholo par ba 다 때주제 온도세나 우만 리초 숭게 와래라 달로만 로두 진제베 우만 리초 조 기발라서 바다보 디주게 나도 산지제 깡콜로 바르베 나도 돈이 임버 서버템 바제다 우만 리초 그놈도 테 리피 드니 템바임 베처나 드니 테남라 랍도 타 요래라 다티 인지 민지 당보 투바시 드니 삼바시 대감비 냥스 롱네 거기 요래 Rete yina yang kapndar ta yong su chakpa re la tini kapndar mampu tiyo ma re song re.
And so we need to follow this pure path. And then the second section talks about how we need to, in order to follow the path, we need to realize the self-empty view perfectly. We need to realize this well. And so we have both the Rangtong, or self-empty, and the Shentong, or other empty view. And we need to understand them both. The Rangtong and the Shentong, it's not as if they are contradictory in any way. If we are going to have in order to know the Rangtong, we have to know the Shentong. In order to know the Shentong, we have to know the Rangtong. And so for that reason, we need to realize the view of the Rangtong, of the self-empty. And so what is the view of the self-empty, the Rangtong? The view of the self-empty is that all dharmas, that is all phenomena, are naturally empty. That means that they can't be proven to be anything. They're naturally empty. We need to realize this. And we not only do we need to realize it, we really need to completely comprehend it and internalize it. We need to have real, strong certainty arise in that. We need to have that arise. So how is it that we can come to this certainty? Well, we can come to it by studying the words and the treatises. And in terms of the words, this is most clearly taught in the middle turning of the wheel of Dharma in the teachings, in the sutras that teach the Prajnaparamita, the transcendent full knowing. And so there are the extensive sutras, the middle-length sutras, the short sutras, and the extremely short sutras that teach the Prajnaparamita. And so we need to listen to them, we need to contemplate, and then we need to practice meditation upon them. And if we do that, then we will be able to come to realize the view of the self-empty, the Rangtong. In terms of the treatises, there are the 6 collections of reasoning by Nagarjuna and many other treatises. And in these, the emptiness is proven through logic. And so in the words of the middle turning of the wheel, the Dharma, the words of the sutras, then it's clearly stated that all phenomena are emptiness. And then in the collections of reasoning and the Madhyamaka teachings, this is proven by logic and proven without a doubt by logic. And so we can study these, and then we can come to contemplate them, and then practice meditation upon them, and that way come to realize what they are. And so the methods for doing this, it says here, are very well known, and so he does not, in the book, does not write a whole lot about them.
Tene ta te ya sachi sumbe ong de sena ta te ta bu tong ba ni te kan de sin ni nyam slen gu gre sena tu de je gamba tene te ya ta ye tu pa ji dong ta nam ba la gam ne nyam slen gu ge yo re ta kam der tene ta da yum hira je paru de ba je pa ge long da tene te na ne mixal to hira je paru de ba dupa six je pa na la Jewa mepatang, jewa nika matopatang, bo jewa mepala medo nyamdo yung zamba mayimba, jewa yodo nyamdo yung zamba mayimba, then hira paru chinchu jeba inde, hira je paru zamba yang takwa re suwata. Tene tanda pong de tong hi to na yung pongpong abon de tongba re se to na yung songju semba de semala jeba re, tongba ni dun zamba yana. Tongba ni yinba tong, tongba ni mayimba tamchi ta yi zhuba ji tong tayo nambala gugi yuwa re song ne ta tenparan seba yendo de nyamsuling gugi yuwa re.
The next section, the third section, teaches how it is that we can practice meditation on emptiness. And we need to do the meditation practice that we need to do the unelaborated, the meditation practice that is free of elaborations. So we need to have meditation that is free of the 4 extremes and the 8 elaborations, and that is what we need to practice. And this is taught in terms of citations from the extensive mother, the 100,000 stanza verses on Prajnaparamita, and also from the condensed. And from the condensed one, it says what it says is that there is no arising. And we might think that there's no arising, or we might think that there's not no arising, but actually what we need is the view that does not hold to there either being arising or not being arising. That is the actual view of the transcendent full knowing, or Prajnaparamita. And similarly, a bodhisattva might think to themselves, oh, the aggregates are empty, or they might think the aggregates or skandhas are empty, or they might think that the aggregates are not empty, but in either case they're holding on to it with thoughts. And so what we need to have, there should not be any grasping at any thought of, oh, it's empty, or any thought of it's not empty. We need to have something that is beyond that, that is free of the 4 extremes and 8 elaborations, and that is what we need to practice.
Tene ta te jisla te ta ta ye tu ba ji dong tawa gamba te ya mengo ke ni samo gugi wa la tene mengo ke ni samo kap ndar song na o ngapa ta chiwa za chiwa 다 응가바도 잔치와 세도 다 지탕 너의 온도 시에나 드네랑인게 희내제 띵엔잔다 Rangtong 띵엔잔 코나 검니 냠슬랭게 요아레티 예나야 데라 송호제 맹어동 데나 드네 뚜모동 장라소도 고니 응가바도 잔치와라소바 뚜몽게 맹어 된조 드네 검 뚜모 마임베 맹어 된조 라 맹어 된조 니도 네네 드네 다이게 두바지 동저 동바니 제네루 도바지 고기 요아레 송 다디 사지 이게바
And then, in order to practice this meditation that is free of the four extremes and the 8 elaborations, we need to follow the points of the oral instructions, the profound points of the oral instructions. And here, what it talks about is it says that we need to stop the breath and bind the channels or the nadis. And so here, when we talk about stopping the breath and binding the channels, if we think about it in terms of the sutras, generally it just says that naturally what we need to do is the meditation on tranquility. We need to do the meditation on insight, and that is all that is taught in the sutras. However, in the oral instructions of the secret mantra of Vajrayana, there are many different practices, such as the practice of tumo or chandali, the heat practice, the practices of binding the channels and stopping the wind, practices working with the channels and wind. And so here, when we're talking about stopping the wind and binding the channels, these are the instructions of the particular uncommon instructions of the secret mantra Vajrayana. And we need to really bring them right to the point and then practice do the meditation practice that is free of the 4 extremes and 8 elaborations. And so this is what the 4th section says.
Tene ta teya certo kapndar sona tanda tingenzen cheparchinjela chewala tene zalung tang zalung ge mengwa tenzo goge yo suma de la tene te yendo zalung ge mengwa tenzo gombe kapsula ya inji minji tawa number tapa te goge yo are mato tawa number tapa te me na tene zalung jangba gomna tene luji yonguru sepanda boche ta tene sen tanda zalung gombaje ta luji exercise ndaboje mato tene une ge sana ne da nambaje yong yo mare la teacher na tanda ta zalung ge mengo dong tenzo lenje to gonggu yo are.
So here it says that in order to really generate the exceptional samadhi meditation within us, we need to meditate upon the channels and the winds. And so it says that we need to have those particular instructions in order to do this. And so that's true. We do need to practice with the channels and winds. But if we just do the practices on the channels and winds, in order to do that, we also need to have the utterly pure view. And if we don't have a really strong, correct, pure view, then when we do the practices on the channels and winds, then we're just doing moving our bodies about and doing a little bit of exercise. And other than that, it doesn't really get down to the point in our minds. And so it is very important that when we do the practices that involve the channels and winds, that we have at the same time that we meditate upon the correct view.
Tene ta tejindo ta tigi sachi ikiba de sone ngaba tela tumong gomba dan jeba namda gogi ware la tene tumong gomba dan jeba number taba kare gogi ware sena jamba dan nije tene senjing dan ji dewan de be jamba senjing dan ji dongha dong tan de nije tene te tabu ge jamba dan nije te pelwe ge tabla kare gogi ware sena ta ngaran su tujondo nyamle no 대득 동ling 미 봤어 봤대 다긴 냠바도 다긴 제와 그거 네 감테 되네 대득 동ling 미 봤어 봤대 다 저도 단다 로종게 맹어 그때니 감나 로종게 맹어 때 감나 되네 라니짱 되네 단다 라진징 넘버 또 방님 봤대 뽕니 yin la chamba to ninji jege ya ba jai dang de tabu gamba la tene yin tam chi chi jong de dungal trawa to dewa thopa la so be nu ba che par jing to de ba yin be cherna perna lo jong ten din ma ta bu ta ta de yin to lo jong me nga la tene da yin nyang ba to da yin jewa gamba tene de yin to song ho do je ti be long ren tar to tene iram je la ye jerem iram je la dachi ga nambala gomba iram jalala sinap hiyo ge che don dinji je nambala gomba iram jalala onkur la soba hiyo che do pumji je nambala gomba la soba to pata che peta ti gomte gogi ore sumba de ta ngaba tmong ga gomdo teni che patin zo number ta gogi ore so mai sar.
So that was the fourth section. And then the fifth section says that we need to have the utterly pure meditation and conduct. And so what is this pure meditation and conduct? This is the meditation on love and compassion. This is the love that wishes to bring all sentient beings to happiness and the compassion that wishes to free all sentient beings from suffering. And so we need ways to develop them. And what are the ways that we can develop these? One way to do it is through the visualization of sending and taking, called Tonglen, where we send our happiness and take suffering. And this is we can do the practice of seeing the equality of self and others. We can also do the practice of the exchange in self and others. And so we do these practices. When we do the practice of sending and receiving, or Tonglen, then we follow the instructions of the mind training, and through following these, we are able, for ourselves, we are able to decrease and get rid of our excessive cherishing of ourselves, and we are able to develop and increase our cherishing of others, our love for others, and then we will eventually be able to come to the point where we'll really be able to help others free themselves from suffering. And so in this way, we have these instructions on this from the 7 points of mind training and the other oral instructions on mind training, the Tonglen and the exchange, equality of self and other, and the meditation on exchanging oneself and other. In terms of the secret mantra of Vajrayana, we have the meditations on the Yidam deities. And so in these meditations on the Yidam deities, we have the visualizing ourselves as the deity, or in order to accumulate merit, we visualize the deity in front of ourselves, or in order to receive the empowerments, we do the Vaz visualizations, and we need to do these meditations also. And so this is the what is taught in the fifth section, that which is the common meditation and conduct that we need.
Tene ta tejendo trupatela yemi la sopa lepar chewa sungge yore yemi la sopa lepar chewa te ta thangbo ngaranzu tingen zen gom be nyam yo ta tene ta te jeso tene ngi che parchi jeso ngi che parchi che pate ya ta certo tene ka parpa cheni me pase ta thomchi toni imbala tene ka thama lekpar number chewa segi yore lekpar number chewa se du tela ta te perna tene me na tomba ni imbe ngupo te toni imbe ke chol tomba ni maimpa te tomba ni maimpa sosur che ne tomba ni ta tomba ni che rangin le ndepe ke tene yihi ke namba te tabo tene salwar chewa imbe cherna lepar number chewa tang te yendo songha samu chujin kolo chetawa yendo kamdar songha dela songha samu ta te kandi nangda ten lepar number chewa te kandi nangda ten yore sena kathame nangda ten yeba jeta te yendo songha doje tipe nangda ten yeba imbe cherna te tabu ke nengwa te yang taba jay cheni tene kamdar chinong yin samsu lepar number chewa te chen ne jinji ten nang dorji lu ta te chetang nang la nderba yeba nang lu dong chi ne la nderba yeba jaitan te yendo chetang nang lu ni la nderba yeba samdo ma ji yin se na takbe nong yin jing khur jing kholo sin ta ta bu no yiram je la yi ko la yi de ba ye ba yin de chen na te gom na te la pin ta ta ba ta de ta we yin be so ma sa mo te yin de ni par ngon che pa gu re so ni.
The sixth section is called differentiating well the existent and the non-existent and so forth. And so here when we say well differentiating well, what does that mean? Well, what this means, so this is, oh, I got ahead of myself, I'm sorry. So here when we talk about doing our meditation, when we have the practice that we do during the meditation when we're resting in equipoise, and then following that we arise and we have the post-meditation practices when we have to have a lot of certainty in what we're doing. And so here that is taught in terms of the middle turning of the wheel of Dharma, the wheel of no characteristics. And then also there's the third and final turning of the wheel of Dharma that differentiates well. And so what do we mean here by saying differentiating well? When we say differentiating well, what we mean is that if something does not exist, we have to know exactly how it is that it does not exist, how it is that it is emptiness. And if there is something, we have to know how it is that it actually is. And so by knowing this, by differentiating well between what exists and what does not exist, then we are able to then transcend the nature, and we are able to come to the aspect of the clear wisdom. And so for that reason, we need to be able to clearly differentiating between what is and what is not. And so that is what we mean here by the wheel of, that is what we mean by differentiating well here. And so this is a very important point, a very profound point of the Buddha. And where is it that it is taught? This is primarily taught in the third and final turning of the wheel of Dharma, the wheel of the good differentiation. And it is also taught in the secret mantra Vajrayana, in the profound teachings of the secret mantra Vajrayana. And so this is a very important point that we need to know. We need to understand it very well. We need to differentiate between what is and what is not. Now, at the end of this, it says that we need to be able to differentiate very well between the external, the internal, and the other. And I haven't got my English open, so I can't tell you exactly what Jeffrey Hopkins is, but it says something like this. We need to differentiate well between the external, the internal, and the other. And when we say the external and the internal and the other, what is it that we mean? When we say the external, we mean... Oh. Let me refix this. Okay, that should be okay. Is that fine? Yeah. Okay, when we say the external, the internal, and the other, these three, what we mean by external here is the external world. And so when we talk about the internal, we mean the internal, the Vajra beings within the world. And the external world and the internal world and the internal Vajra beings, they are connected. We need to know that connection. We need to be able to see that connection between the external and the internal. And then here it also says the external, internal, and other. And by other, what is meant here are the pure appearances of the Yidam deities and of their bodies and their mandalas and so forth. And so these are all connected and associated with each other. And so if we are able to know one, then that is able to help another one. And so this is a very profound point that we need to recognize.
Tene ta teji so sachi damba tela tang kolosum chujin kolorum basum to korwate da songo doji Tibetan de yapo je higu yore ta te rimba yendola kolo tangbo da kolo niba da kolo sumba 콜로 당보티 현주가 남반다 보지 콜로 니바디 띵엔zen gomba 되네 다 콜로 숨바디 띵엔zen데 양타바다 용타바 마인바 살보르 히비게 되네 니히 체버지 제위게 탑타바제 당송호 도지티비 주데 데이터바제 임비잖아 강국이 요래 송아제다 제바데 되네 콜로 숨보티 송지징 주징 콜로 름바섬도 거와래라 주징 콜로 름바섬도 거구비 준센데 다 빼나 빼요니 되네 노브름보체제 톱나 노브름보체데 동보 사이고라 되네 여바 되네 사이고니야 템베캅슬라 되네 사다 도다 노르보다 리니 바 여바데 다 노브임발라 히나 동보 사다 도텐조 장마 야보 제세네 되네 디캅슬라 제달 치 되네 대야 치시 된조 좁보 라보제 그 시와마도 점부게 치나 되네 다 세토게요 말라 되네 디가스 촐라토 가슬라야 낙제 쇼쳔보이야 바든데 그 트루 되네 데이제슬 노부데 징아요 가슬라 되네 제 낙제 점보다 되네 치시 된조용 흠말레 점보 그치 되네 노브름 보진 응도 저르베 갑슬라 되네 초장마 그투 되네 렌점부 그 치네 되네 외다 덴바 노르부 장마 양탁바제 용기 요래라 베테 연도 되네 추주골로 거와데 다 제바데 산지 좀 된데지 추주골로 름바섬도 거와데요 데타르도 당보 제 드마락과 된조다 제 이치지위게 저도 흔두게 넘바다 드니 띵엔zen gombe 탑다 드니 데띵엔zen데 용타바 예밍이 히체버진 제게 또 템바레 송아
The second, the seventh seat. Let me start again. The seventh section says that these three turnings, they're the three turnings of the wheel of Dharma, the first, second, and third turnings of the wheel of Dharma, and the secret mantra Vajrayana. And we basically need to know these three turnings of the wheel of the Dharma well, and we need to know their meaning, and they're taught in order. And so there's the first turning of the wheel of the Dharma, and the second turning of the wheel of the Dharma, and the third turning of the wheel of the Dharma. And of these, the first turning of the wheel of the Dharma is taught as a sort of preliminary practice. And then the second turning of the wheel of Dharma is taught as a way to generate good samadhi, good meditation. And then the third turning of the wheel of the Dharma teaches us ways to tell whether our meditation is correct or not correct, or good or not good. And then the secret mantra Vajrayana is also said to be similar to that. So that's the seventh section. And then following that, in the eighth section, it talks about, again, talking about the three turnings of the wheel of the Dharma. And it says, why are there three different turnings of the wheel of the Dharma? Why did the Buddha turn the wheel of the Dharma three times? Well, there's an example that's given. The example is of a jewel. If we have a jewel, first the jewel is underground, and when it's underground, it's all covered and encrusted in rocks and dirt and all sorts of stuff. And so then when you take it out of the ground and you know that there's a jewel inside here, you need to cleanse it. You need to purify it. You need to wipe it off somehow. And so at first what you need to do is you need to use rather harsh methods to do this, to break off all of the encrusted stuff. And then after that, you need to put it in some sort of, you need to bathe it in something. And when you bathe it in something, you have to bathe it in something that's got a really strong chemical in it in order to clean it off. And so you clean it in there. And then after that, you can be you've got it mostly clean in that way. Then you can take it out, and then you can be a little bit more gentle with it. And you take a soft cloth and you wipe it down. And then eventually, when the jewel that is beneath all of that encrusted stuff becomes visible, then at that point, you can just clean it off in pure water, and you just wipe it off with a very soft rock. And in that way, that's how you get the beautiful jewel outside of the rock. And so it's similarly to that. similarly to that example, in terms of the turnings of the wheel of the Dharma, the Buddha turned the wheel of the Dharma 3 times similarly, so that from the first turning the wheel of the Dharma, we can get rid of the coarse problems. We can develop faith in the Dharma, and we can do it as a sort of a preliminary practice. And then in the second wheel, turning of the wheel of the Dharma, he taught the methods for how to do meditation. And then finally, in the third turning of the wheel of the Dharma, he taught the methods for telling whether or not our meditation is right.
Tene ta te jeso ta tantan kolosum de temparela kolosum de tangdan dong ngiden kan bare kande tangdan de kande ngiden de de tang kan to so are se na sanji jamdin de rangi do gomba ngi paran de ga nando tene somne tene yul warana sa tongson lo ar do je na so sumbe tene demba yeti so are tene suwa re ti chu chung ko lo korwa re yin na yan ti chu chung ko lo korwa ti ta tangpo chu chung ko lo korwa ti ti le kond me pa je re se na ma re ta ti durza na tong tan to korwa re ti yendo do gomba ngi ban re no do song na tene chu chung ko lo ni ba ti chu tong ji ngo ni me par song yo re Chötanji ngōni mebar sumba te yang, tene kōna meba, lana meba jiribisi na, tene lana meba mare. Tene ta teji so na, tene ta chujung kolo kandi korware se na, chujung kolo sumba, labor number sevi chujung kolo korware. Labor number sevi chujung kolo te, ta tele kōna meba, lana meba, chepartam papa yen sa ne, sanji jamden de je, sanji jamden de rangi, do gomba ngi parante no to song yore. Teacher na katamate ta ngi danje, do de samu chepartam papa re so ne.
So what's taught next is that we have these 3 turnings of the wheel of Dharma that we're taught, and some of them are the expedient or guiding meaning, and some of them are the definitive meaning. And so how is it that we can know which of these are the guiding meaning and which of these are the ultimate meaning? How is it that we can know this? Where is it that this is taught? This is taught in the sutra, the sutra that is the commentary of being certain in the meaning. And so this sutra teaches that first in the location of the deer park of the fallen sages in Varanasi, the Buddha turned the wheel of the Dharma. He turned the wheel of the Dharma of the 4 Noble Truths. And so this wheel of the Dharma wheel of the 4 Noble Truths, is there something that is higher than them? Are these the unexcelled? Are these the highest of all the teachings? They are not the highest of all the teachings. These were the first teachings that he gave, and he gave these teachings in order to guide the disciples. And then following that, the sutra says that following that, he taught the second turning of the wheel of the Dharma. The second thing that he taught is that all Dharmas have no real essence. They have no real essence. And so is this teaching something that is unexcelled and highest? It is not. It's not the unexcelled highest teaching. Well then, what is the Dharma wheel that is the unexcelled and highest teaching? That is the third turning of the wheel of the Dharma, the wheel of the good differentiation. And that is the wheel of Dharma that cannot be excelled, cannot be exceeded in any way. And so this is what is taught in the sutra of the definitive commentary on the Buddha's words. I can't remember how Jeffrey Hopkins translates it. I'm sorry. So this is the taught in that sutra. And so it is saying essentially that the third turning of the wheel of Dharma is the wheel of Dharma that is the best and superior wheel.
Tate ndo gomba ngipan driven do gomba la do gomba ngipan driven do la tini ya juba ti tulbe lodo do de la tulbe lodo salwa re la tini te ya kashi gi se na do gomba ngipan driven ngida mare do gomba ngipan driven dongda re sungi yo re te yinaya te mare do gomba ngiban debati trondan yimbe duzi gripa yo mare la do gomba ngiban debati tene ka thama te tene sensan pa yimbe duzi gripa yo mare duzi gripa me be junsi ten do gomba ngiban debati nani senje nelu de ranging ke tene ta ye tuba ji don tomba ni yimbar ten yo are mato tene tanda semsam patardo dembar tubungu pola tenyo mare teacher na do gombangi bande bando de tene ngiren chin do de imba mat do gombangi bande bando de tongdan chin do de mare so insare.
And so that is the teaching of the Sutra of the definitive commentary on the Buddha's intent. And so in this sutra, the definitive commentary on the Buddha's intent, in the 10th section, which is called Dispelling Many Wrong Thoughts or Many Erroneous Conclusions, what this is saying is that some people say that this sutra of the definitive commentary on the Buddha's thought, that this sutra is not the definitive meaning, that this sutra is the expedient meaning. However, what this section says is that there is nothing that can prove that. There is no proof of that. Moreover, some people say that this sutra of the definitive commentary on the Buddha's meaning or Buddha's intent is a teaching of the mind-only school. However, there is absolutely no logic to prove that this is the mind-only school. And the reason for that is that within this sutra that teaches the definitive commentary on the Buddha's intent, it teaches that the essence of the mind is free from the 4 extremes and the 8 elaborations. It teaches that it is empty. And so it is not at all like the truly existent mind that the mind-only school asserts. And so for that reason, the sutra that gives the definitive commentary on the Buddha's intent is not the expedient meaning, but not a sutra that teaches the expedient meaning.
Tene ta tanda jitang tumong lamjeram bagam sulte hubarela. Nipa tumo maimba. Ta tumo maimba kankolo tamig gondan hibatela. Tene ta nang sachi te mambu yore. Te yinaya tene tela ta tangbo tom ke cheparandabo ta tende songa tela. Tene tati ndortemba ta jepraheba namba ni yorala tinane ndortemba te neka maguna yanta jepraheba no salvor yungi yorala tene teacher na ndortemba te la ya nansi ke sachi khahi yore di na yante maguna yonde to sambata bu jongsona tene tati jesu niba jepraheba ta tere jepraheba te la sachi namba goyore sachi namba goyo la tene teya tene tati sachi namba goyo penane tangbo kongi tomba tong ye kong yinba tene tong matong tong ni kan yinba te tembe kasala tene tongjo te kandiki tong are tene tongbe ki ye te kandire sena tongbe ki ye te dewar hibi nimbo re tene tongbe ki ngupo te tata ngaransu ki ye re samnaya ten trubare yo mare samnayo ten trubare tene tombani re samnayo ten trubare tombani mare samnayo trubare tante jitindi ge no ande lobrji tmarela lobrji tmaton talve tapa yihi je no atela maton barang yin bichna tangbo ton maton ge cheparte mare
Lobrji tmaton
lobrji tmati tomba
tomba tene dapet
lobrji tma ti tombe yete devar hibi nimbo ti tong yerba
la tene dapet na wa
tapik no te lang
la tene chinige
tapa yihi je no ye
na wa yishige de tomba
tomba
de so yan tomba
tenzu tomba maimba
Okay, so that concludes. That's the discussion of the common path of the of the Mahayana vehicle. And then following that comes the discussion of the uncommon teachings of the third wheel. This is an explanation of the intended meaning of the third turning of the wheel of Dharma. And so in terms of the number of sections within this, there are quite a few of them. But we will just go through them. And so, but in general, there are two different parts. There is at first a brief overview, and then there is the extensive explanation. Now, the brief overview has a few different little sections in it, but everything that's covered within that is very clearly explained in the extended explanation. So for the time being, we will leave that and move on to the extensive explanation. Now, the extensive explanation has 9 different subjects to that. And so the first of these subjects is identifying what is it that is empty, what is empty of what is it that it is empty of. And so here, how is it that we know what is empty and what is not empty? And so here, we need to know what is something empty of, and then also what is the basis that is empty. And so the basis that is empty of something else, that is the Buddha nature. The Buddha nature is what is empty. Now, everything, the other things, I'm not saying this clear, I'm going to clarify. So here, what is the basis of the emptiness, or what is empty of something else, in other words? The basis that is empty is the Buddha nature. And so the Buddha nature is in itself not, I'm trying to think of how to say this clearly because there are too many emptinesses in it. So the basis of emptiness is Buddha nature, but the Buddha nature itself is not actually empty. And so the Buddha nature itself is the basis, is the freedom of the nature of the mind that is free of the 4 extremes and the 8 elaborations. And those are the confusions, the delusions that we have in our normal life, the worldly appearances that come up, of the appearances of the world. Those are all stains. And so that is what the Buddha nature is empty of. And so those are what we call empty. But we'd say that the Buddha nature is not empty.
Tene tateya tetabu songu bi junsen ta perna oma Rangtong tawa tenla papa ta oma Shentong tawa tenla papgu bi junsen de kandere se na ngaranso sosuji gen zambala tanda inzen segreba inzen se de kandere se na yana yapa yana mepa tiji mato hiran zan hi yo mare ta lo korang sem korang jitam mari pa yindu chuni ge nelu ton thamba che yapo che zan hi yo mare chuni ge nelu ton ngal de ba che yana yapa injin se du yana yapa yana mepa yana da yana yin tende ji mato zan hi yo mare la ta tela sanje tong songju samba tong ji tuji me du song wala tene sanje ji chu jing ko lo ramba som du kor ne ta ti ge injin ti ge parta tene ko ngune ge ne tang yang ta pa te top ge tap tene ta te yendo kedo chimbo ten ju ki jong tene toni re song ne tena ga sa toni mari song ne tena ko ga ya pu ji je tu ge ndo ko ga on du se na ko ya pu kan di se ne je tu ge ndo te yendo gombe nyans nyon ka so la ya gombe nyans nyon du sem ge ko te ye pa tom me pa ni ma tu zai ma hi pa la tene gong du go te si norwa ti ma tu ya pu je gom hi ge yo ma re la te yapoje gom hipate kalche ge yore te yapoje gom hipate kalche wa imbe cherna teni ti thai tuba ji don tra uma Rangtong tawa ten la pha na gasa andu yana to ni mare se ne uma Shentong tawa ten la pha na gasa andu te yapu che thaphi chepra chenji nangu yore ma to teni to ni mare se na ne dendru den sai to ni re se na ne kemo me ba je lan sai na ti san khorang ne tang re san khorang ne tang la tende ji ma to mari pa song din zai hi ge yo mare la ta te la thap la khep go ni teni ko yapu ji che thap na re ba.
And so we need to know what it is that we mean when we say that something is empty and self-empty. We need to know what it means when we say that something is not empty. And so what is the reason that we sometimes teach emptiness or not emptiness? And the reason is that we ordinary individuals, we have dualistic perception. We always see things in a dualistic way. So for us, either something exists or it doesn't exist. And other than that, there's no way that we can perceive it. It has to either be or it is not. We can't. We are. And this is because we have a lot of ignorance. And because we have the ignorance, the way that we perceive is not really in accord with the actual Dharma nature. So for us ordinary people, either something has to be or it has to not be, or we have to say that it's empty or it's not empty. And so this is because we have these habits of clinging to dualistic perception. And other than that, we aren't really able to perceive things as they really are. But all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas turned the wheel of Dharma and gave several turnings of the wheel of Dharma in order to help us get rid of this dualistic clinging. And so sometimes they would teach that things are empty. Sometimes the calculate the chukor kaso the chitamji the tomborao temporary special
tombani de tena cheong me pa chela kogre ya te tombani main pa tena ne yang upo do dembar to ba chela zain de gre ti san khorang ne tang re ba ta ti nguni khari to gu yore se na tombani chomba yo main pa cheong me pa yo main pa tene upo do dembar to ba yo main pa ta khora se chuni de me ne de ya fu de hi gu yore ba ti hi gu de tene ta hi number na zo bu ne ka la yo re so ka la yo mare so ne te ten gre ba.
Okay, so what we really need to realize is sometimes when we say that everything is empty, then we think that it doesn't exist, it's just blank nothingness. And then sometimes when we say that, oh, it's not nothing, that it's not empty, then we think that, well, there's something there, that there's some sort of a solid thing that we can grasp onto. But actually the way that it really is that it's not just blank nothingness. It's empty, but it's not just blank nothingness. But if you look and try to find, is there some sort of a thing there that we can grasp onto? There's no solid thing there in any way. Because of our habits, we feel like it has to be one way or the other, but actually the way the Dharma nature actually is not really either of those. However, as sort of methods to help us understand how things actually are, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas sometimes would say, it's empty. There's nothing. Or sometimes they'd say, it's not empty, there's something. And so there are various different methods that are taught as ways to help us come to understand this thing that it's not really just blank, it's not blank nothingness, but there's also nothing that we can really say, no real solid thing that we can find there either.
Tene ta te la ta te tabu temperance patan tongye tene ni pa te hi la yemi ta te ngune hi je ne lu la yo patan me pa kari yim patan tene ta sumba te tar to pa te tashi to dukurle de pa ta te ngune ti injin le galwe ge tene ta ti ge tomba ni rangi tomba jiyo me paran zamba jay tang ngupo dembar to paran zamba nika mayin be partatna ngaran soge sanji teji tende nyinzinji ma to togi yo mare te yina ya ta tela tabhi namba na chobanze na tini ti nguni tini tombe tongsul de kandirindu salve salsul de kandirindu yapo je ngehi teji ne ti taindo gamji jabna tini gamte yo manoro wa yang tapaji yungi yo re.
And so that is teaching with the basis of emptiness. And then following that, there is the second section, which teaches that what exists and what does not exist, the meaning of what exists and does not exist in the nature. And so we need to know what it is that exists in the nature and what does not exist in the nature and the way things are. And so then after that, the third section teaches about how it is we can transcend any misconceptions about what is and what is not, what is permanent, what is nihilistic in that. And so here, this is basically talking about how we can transcend dualism here. And so usually when we say that something is empty, we think that it's nothingness, or when we say it's not empty, we think it's something. But there's actually a place that's in the middle between being just blank old nothingness and being a real solid thing. And so for that reason, we need to be able to, but we're not able to realize that because of our dualistic perception. And so for that reason, there are many different methods that we can follow to come to this middle ground. And so for that reason, we need to know how it is that things are empty. We need to know how it is that things are clear. And when we know this and we have a real certain knowledge in it, then when we do our meditation, it will be unmistaken and will turn out very well.
Tene ta te jeso saji yibani jepa patla ta chitang do tang tenju tang songho ji jede samotam ji de ne sumbu ge chol ndabo ji songre la te ta pachi tando jikpa ndabo tando susu ndo ge gomba tang tenju ge gomba tang mengo ge gomba tang songho do ji tipi jede ge gomba tenzo kanga je dun du ge chol de songre tene saji jepa saji goba tela nangse ge mangbo je yore la tene ta tene saji gurungo la yo na somso tene Tawanda nangking na tawanang ju ko kap de si ga yin.
Now, following this, in the 4th through 8th sections of this is the 4th through 8th sections present how this meaning is taught in the sutras, in the tantras, in the treatises, in the classes of tantra, the secret mantra Vajrayana, and in the oral instructions. And so, in this part, each sutra, of course, has its own intent. The treatises have their own intent, and the secret mantra Vajrayana and the tantras and the oral instructions have their particular intent, but they all really come down to this one same meaning. And so that brings us up through the 8th section. And so here we have come up to the 9th section. This 9th section has a number of different different sections to it. And so we will leave it here at the beginning of the 9th section for today. And now I've left plenty of time for questions. So please, again, come forward to the microphone and line up if you have questions.
Rinpoche, I had a question about one of the lists that was previously given. The practices regarding the channels, winds, and drops were spoken of, and then after that, the practices regarding the Vajrayana, the Yedam visualizations. But I understood it to that practices like Chenresig, for example, were called complete practices, and that they weren't preliminaries for anything else, and that you could proceed all the way to full enlightenment by practicing them. But my question is, must you practice separate practices regarding the channels, winds, and drops in order to really realize the potential of that practice? Or does the practice itself have some action where the channels, winds, and drops are opened up and you gain the realization without having to do a separate practice for those?
De la gongdu de la tsa longge gongbu de gogore sumba nan shinge yandegi ola yani sanga doji tepegi yidam gi gongde de gogores inaya de menga kashenana pena genereziki gongde rabena de de na chatan sangyores de la ngundo gayan gogumundos ne shinda gayan gogumundos de chenezigi gomde chibu ane tatogi devo de chanchu ane top tugyeres de dio dedes de yinchi menje de salonge gomde so nyamsu languna de topper kepeche de nyamsu languna yangna de chenezigi gomde drabogi ane nyamlan cheke degi ane salonge salonde so kaze kache drawone de salonge kaze salonge nyamlan drabo imba sonsan de de so mixegi chemenge
tatela gerdu perna sanji jamdindeji tambi chuzung kapsu tini durza susu sambatan tambata mubatan tambala tini tap number na tsopa sunga la tini tap number na tsopa sunga hindu tela tini tela takhi number na tsopa tempa mato jegi ndulna tini senjin tamji mubatan tsamba yung togi yo mare perna ngaranso saganda boje yina saganga nangla bale jangba zongdena tini ti sagana mekira yung mare mekira yung mare tini inji bale ti tegu jagre besina tegu jagre ba yina yung sagantel 총 yapo yung mare la tini ona tatel kariku grisina tatel chemanda manda nambana tsupa sama mandawa takoran kasi kahi 줄몬다고 kahi ngar몬다고 tende 망보 제 여나 tende mesoso kahi ngar몬라 ganken kahi 줄몬라 ganken tende tende 용어인 비처나 tende 소수 삼바탄 탐바 주 삼바탄 탐바 정네 tende 티페 다 사간 코란라 틀린다고 야보 용네 대답을 용거래라 되니 강가를 팽토도요 가킹가 몰라 강케는 가모티 줄몰라 강케는 줄모티 되니 강당 강이는 거대야 야바제 대고 총 야보 용거래라 베대견도 둘자 소소라 다처럼 인지 미치지에서 저저 건데 다때마도 당갈 당 강야메 되나 되니 대 가시 가그래도 가시 싫어 가그 야 인지 미지 가시를 처럼 짤는데 인지 미지 건그래 대마도 다시 강야 요 말이세나 야 가시 가그래라 가시 가그 말이 된테세도 가시 소수 삼바던 탐바 무바던 탐바 대 짤는 겁나야 될라티는 펜토 용그래 대견도 단다 진리제 겁나요 펜토 용그래 된테세도 탑나바나 좁았대 말이야.
When the Buddha taught the genuine Dharma, he taught it for particular students and for their own interests, for their own inclinations, and he taught the Dharma that was in accord with what they needed. And because there were so many different students, he taught many different types of Dharma. If he had said that there's just this one way to tame everything, then it wouldn't necessarily work out with every individual's inclinations. You need different methods for different inclinations. For example, if you have a restaurant, and in your restaurant all you sell is white bread, then not very many people would come to your restaurant. And so, of course, white bread will fill your stomach quite well, and it's fine for you, but your sales in your restaurant would not go very well at all. And so, in addition to selling your white bread, you also have to have some different types of dishes. A little bit of this, and a little bit of that, some meat dishes, some vegetarian dishes, and various sorts of different types of foods. You need to have some sour sorts of food, some sweet sorts of food, because there are some people who like sour food and some people who like sweet food. So you have sour food for those who like sour food, and sweet food for those who like the sweet food. So you have the dishes that are what the people want, that are in accord with the wishes and the needs of the different people who come there. And if you can do that, then the sales in your restaurant will really go very well. And not only that, it'll be really beneficial for everyone. Their stomachs will be, they'll be given what they wanted, and their stomachs will be full, and you'll make a profit. And so likewise, likewise, if Rinpoche were to say to you, you must do the Chenrezig practice. I haven't got any other instructions to give you. You absolutely must do Chenrezig practice. Then some people would really like that, and some people wouldn't like it so much. And similarly, if the Lama were to say to you, well, the only instructions I have to give you are the instructions on the channels and winds. You must do these practices, or I don't have anything else to give it to you. Then some people would like that, and for some people it wouldn't really work well at either. And so in this way, there are many different practices that are taught in accord with all of our inclinations. And so for some people, meditating on the channels and winds is wonderful. And for some people, meditating upon Chenrezig is wonderful. And so in this way, there are these various different methods that are beneficial for the different people with different inclinations.
Tene perna Chenrezig tabaji yinaya ta tela Chenrezig gomdeti yang tabaji shedu tela tene tawa tang gomba ta karese gro ye tawa tena papa ta ye ge tawa kandirindu tene lom gombi nyon selentong kandirindu ti yapo je salbori hipaji Kalachakra ba te yin zang yinaya te tardo yapo je hipati Kalachakra yore.
And when you're doing a practice like Chenrezig, then you really have to know it well. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know what the basis of the view is. You have to know what the path that you're practicing. You have to know how to do the meditation. And so you have to know what is the basis, what is the view that is the basis of this practice, what is the path that you need to practice, how is it, and you have to really know this well. It is very important to know this well. And similarly, when you're doing the practices on the channels and winds, you really have to know the ground path and the result very well.
I just wanted to ask just a little follow-up. So the purpose of practicing channels, winds, and drops is to open up the energy chakras, and so that your energy flow is smooth and appropriate. And my understanding is that Chenrezig will also perform this function because of its own intrinsic qualities. And I just wondered if that was the correct view.
Dila chitang mikashige tsalung gomba de chitang de ane tsalung de so drampo de lung de so yabo lung de so tsana la yabo de drampo de chedo de ane tsadan kolo de so gomba chasan yabo chewi chedo cheres de dekran na shinge Chenrezig gomde drabane de yabo gomna dekran ane chagyres de rabo tawin
zang tenso yabo
chagres de ranshige yabo chagres de yanda payina
te kaka injire la perna zawe miyul de kanderese na ngaranso tene pangse nyemo batangji dong talwa je da doji hige yenten de yabo je jeba de zawe miyul la tene neka zalung la tene zadang long tenso debon roya da tene tanda Chenrezig gomde la tene shomnji shongchu ge san jela jewa te khoranso longwa te se khagare te zawe ge lepsa rabo te tikbar ge yore longwa te se khagare la tene ti zalung ge yen te Chenrezig la tene toba ta Chenrezig shomnji je te zalung la tene toba ti chebar yore te khagayin jere somare perna langwa nini ndrona tene langwa sosu ge ta langwa yepa ni ndrona langwa yemba ni ndro ge sineri di chasang tongre se no tong mare 데 이나요 랩사 제라 레그레 데네 데나 인게 데지 롱고니 카가르바
They're a little bit different. And so the actual real aim of what we're trying to do, the fundamental aim we're trying to do is to abandon, get rid of all of the afflictions and to develop all of the realization. That is our primary aim. And if you do the meditation on the channels and winds, then this will help make the channels and winds comfortable, help them move, help the winds move smoothly, and so forth. And the meditation on Chenrezig is primarily developing love and compassion. And so the paths are different. They go down different paths, but they come to the same destination. So they come to the same destination, but the paths are different. And if you do the practice of Chenrezig, then you can't expect to have all the benefits to the channels and winds. And if you do the practice of the channels and winds, you don't necessarily have all the benefit of the love and compassion because the path is different. So there's a difference there. For example, if you have two roads that go to the same place, if you take the right-hand road, then you aren't going to see the scenery that comes along the left-hand road, are you? But they get to the same place. And so in this way, they are different paths.
Thank you, Rinpoche. This is also a application question regarding practices. I was wondering if Rinpoche could tell us a little bit about how the view of emptiness and Buddha nature could be applied when we are doing dying and death practices like Powa and other Bardo practices.
Dila nyamlangi korla dine chidande tombanigi tawa dan devru shepi nibo tawa dini ane Powa dan Bardo dan ane chipoge nyamlan shepe kaso kande ane jogore.
nombanigi deorgi binbote Bardo don Powa kapsula hori tatela Jitang tandang haransu tombanigi gombati tanda gombati tanda tsendalaya nyomnyong yapu je rabtu chungna nyomnyong yapu je te tabu mayuna kwa yapu je chungna tene jitang Bardo ton Powa gomba kapsalaya pengi ware la tene tige Bardo ton Powa te jitang kande jirese na tene ngaranso 사샤 째니 째 던로한다고 마인바 당보 춘통다고 째 답변나 춘통다고 째 땡 샤리용 춘통다고 째 샤리용도 되라 되니 딘 춘통대 셰용 가서로 줄드니 되니 야 춘통 사바제 샤리 다 되라 베나 ngaranso television 다고 째나 동보 채널 째 거니 채널 이바데 템바나 히 카카카 요아레 마도 제니 제도 소한다고 제 말이라 되니 디게 다 디게 채널 당보던 채널 이바디게 바르다던라 다 가요아레세나 되니 디게 동차제 요아레 봐 코라 베나 채널 당보디시 채널 이바디 supparna 디 바다 동바지 요아레 디 동바디 코 바르도레 바르돌라 예 네당데 용기 요아레라 예 네당데 용기 요아레 디 이나야 나랑라 감차 가야 메두 되니 히다 뭐히게 요 tini ngwa hibi ki chadala bardu ge mengwa tenzo tenne tini tige bardu ge nekap tela kari yerisi ta chuni ge nelu tanda yen uma yen tong pe tawa tenla papati shargi yorela nguni ge kwa yapo che da nguni ge nyonyo yapo che yena ta tika so ngwa hibi yore tita pengi yore tini Powa senke de nekap lu de jeong kapsala tini de jewa sangpo che ge tendo Powa la kogi yore ba
When we do the meditation on emptiness, in the best of instances, we gain real experience of it in this life. But if we don't have the real experience and we have an understanding, and that is going to be very beneficial for us in the bardo and in doing the poa meditation. And so we have bardo when we have the poa. And so, well, what are these? What is it like? What does it happen that happens? Well, when we die, it's not like we go from one place to another place. It's not like that. Rather, there is one confused appearance that arises, and then after that arises, then it stops and it sort of dissolves into itself, and then another confused appearance arises. It's like when you're watching the TV, when you're watching television and you're flipping the channels. So one channel stops, and then the other one appears, and they're different. It's not like they're going from one place to another. It's just one stops and another appears. And so here we go from one birth to another birth, and then in between, well, what is there? Well, there's this emptiness, the emptiness that's there. It's like when you're flipping the channels on the TV. One channel stops, and before the next one stops, there's a brief moment where there's nothing, where it's just empty, right? And so in the same way, when we go through the bardo, then when we in the period between lives, there's that emptiness. And so in the bardo, there's the way the ground is that appears. But because we are not really accustomed to it, we don't recognize it. And so by requesting and following the instructions on the bardo, then when we get to the bardo, what will happen? We'll see the way the Dharma nature is. We'll see the Shentong, we'll see the other empty view. It'll arise and appear to us, and we'll be able to experience it. And so if we have meditated, we'll recognize it, and this will be very beneficial for us. In terms of poa, this is talking about when the body and the mind separate from each other, and it's really a way to take a good rebirth. And so that is what the method of poa is about. And so that's something that is a little bit different.
Rinpoche, this morning you discussed mugu, and in the discussion, the words devotion, faith, and now I'm having a little blackout here, belief arose. And in English, there are very subtle differences in the three words. And I wonder if you could clarify the three and help me to understand, because my understanding is that in Buddhism, the word belief really doesn't have a place.
Tringe kasutine mugu shebe kora de la deba tang mugu tang yiche sheba de la indicate de la devotion, faith, belief. Yeah, belief yang kakala belief kakala confidence lying ba. Ane de la ane belief de indicate na de kepratis tamo yures de kepra de sum kepratis de sum kepratis tamo yures de shenaro na mixege mikashege ane namba sanjebi chulo la yiche rang la ane kare nesa shirayo mare ane yiche la shira namba sanjebi chulo gogumendu se
yichi namba sanjebi chulo gogumendu se tela jitang mupa ta kupa tite kaka hyo chesam yo karere se na mupa se na ta tela gawa ta toa nda boje tene ngaran nda boje na hindu chalam paje la mupa ata ti himbo yosare ti yapoto toa yapoto so mupa yo ina hindu chalam pal kupa yo mare tene tela tene mukusi tene kupa de yang yenda de la ata ti cha chimbo de ti che par ton papa tombe chul nda boje ina tel kupa yo ne mupa yo ni ka yo pa nda boje la ko yo la Tene tanda ichi te ta mugu yopala tene mugu te mige sege du injire sambandra maimpa. Ngarang tene te ri do sambe ichi chepartam papati ngarang so nangpa sanji pala pe kalchegi warela. Tene tanda ichi chipate rikpi jesundone. Tene ta sanji jamdende jisona seji darwe serjendo leparta ne ngaika langwar sai kushir me se du perna serji ina tangbo taji yapu si dar chi chi ni ser yang ta pa ri indu tagu gre ser nyo kapsula pe te yendo sanji jamdende ji katin tangbo taji yapu si tene jimanguni rinduga sani ichi yapu je ikitaini taji gu gre songarela ichi mugupa mare song.
The word for devotion in Tibetan is mu gu, and so mu means like interest, and gu is like respect. It's often said to be respect. And so these two are actually a little bit different. Interest and respect are a little bit different. And so when we talk about interest, then that is sort of like joy or excitement, interest in something. And so, for example, when I think about the fruit of the orange, then I have interest in it. I think, oh, that's probably pretty good, and I'm probably pretty nice, but I don't have respect for it. That's not there. Respect is when you think that, oh, that is really important, that is really great, that is superior, and that is something that I need. And so that is what is meant here by respect. And so here, when we say in English devotion, the Tibetan word is mugu, or interest and respect. It's these two together. Now, in terms of belief, and here note on the translation, depending on the context, I've sometimes said belief, I've sometimes said confidence in the translation. So, but the Tibetan word is yiche. And so when we talk about yiche, or belief here, then this is something that comes because of our devotion. And so we have devotion. It's not just because someone says something that we believe it. Rather, it is that we have devotion, we have faith in something, and then in the base of that, we develop faith, and we think, oh, this is really important. This is a very good thing to have, and we believe it, and we have confidence in it. And so that is something that is very important in Buddhism. It is important to have this belief or confidence. And so, but this belief that we have is something that comes out of logic, or comes out of reasoning. And it's like the Buddha said, like burning, polishing, and splitting gold, examine carefully my words before accepting them. Do not accept them out of faith. And so here, when we are buying a piece of gold, we first need to really examine it carefully. We need to look at it. We need to sort of rub it. We need to burn it, melt it, and see what it's like. We need to split it and see, is this really gold? And then if it really is gold, then we buy it. In the same way, when we are listening to the words of the Buddha, we need to think, is this really how it is? We need to examine it well and use our logic to examine it carefully. And then when we've done that and we have confidence, what the confidence is that we have real belief and confidence in it. We've really decided it for ourselves, and that really brings us to a true certainty into it. And so this is not at all something that is unnecessary.
Rinpoche, does a deity exist, or such as Chenrezig, or is a deity created by mind?
Chenrezig drabu hla drabu yana, de musu yana yan simgi nantru yana.
Chenrezig la tak sen namchu jomba mare tanda senji nelu ge takpa nongwa la ta te sanji jenreze ji godang hinkam ta dejendo yiram ji laso tamji ji godong hinkam no tamji char de rongwa yin becherna ta de dewarhi bi nimbu ronzu na bo jela tene takbala hargi yaba ta tende suware ba tene de la tene ya Rangtong jangba ma yinba tene nganje sanji dong chongchu samba tamji la jamba dong hinji chebar dong papa jine tene ta tige rongzu le kharwate papa jine ze de sanji tamji ji tu hinji chimbu rongzu papa jambali yon de sanji tamji ji yihi ji rongzu tene son dabo chana doji de sanji tamji ji nubu rongzu se na ta te tabu ko gamne solwa tabna sena tobju ya panda buji yorba ta tinde ji insare.
Chenrezig is not merely a manifestation of the mind. It's not merely. Chenrezig is a pure appearance, and so there's the pure appearance of the body of the deity, the pure appearance of his pure realm, of all of the deities, the appearance of these and of all of the assemblies of retinues of deities and so forth. All of these are the pure appearances that are the self-form of the Buddha nature, to say it literally, or you could say the embodiment of the Buddha nature. And so these appear in a pure way. So these are the pure appearances that we have. And so these are, but they aren't just our own appearances. They are also because all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the past have, because of their prayers and their practice, they have developed love and compassion. And the embodiment of that love and compassion is Chenrezig. So Chenrezig is the embodiment of the love and compassion of all the Buddhas. Manjushri is the embodiment of the wisdom of all the Buddhas. And Vajrapani is the embodiment of all the power of all of the Buddhas. And if we pray to them and have faith and devotion in them, then it is possible for us to receive their blessings.
Now, if I were to ask this question of somebody of the Rangtong school, say Tsongkhapa, would I get the same answer?
You'll probably get the same answer.
Because Ranjan Dorje in the Differentiating Wisdom and Consciousness goes through the Chittamatra explanation, as I understand it, and says that everything is created by mind. And I don't think he discusses at all pure beings.
Kongi gogi on the chena de la Ranjun Dorje ge namshi shi chepe kasu de namshi shepala de sensam gi tawa shepe kasu de chitam je samgi nam true yamar shebere de la ne dapena de kasu sheyamare se
dapena
de kasu sheyamare se
chitam ji senji nam trimba kandina Top no te song yore. Karere sena no tan ji senjerang yin de number hipa chu ji ge nambala song yore. Te top no la hya ka sa la yi ngai rang yin to sung du te la teni shawa tu bi hi to susur to bi hi to nyamba ni ji hi ta te yi nga bo te la susu se shele susu yore ba. Teni te la kantrese go zote nyamba ni ji hi ta tabu ji na chu tam ji nyom ni to chu ji yin ji hi tabu ji na chu tam ji dong ni yin ba lan do ta kun zo go on de se na shawa tu bi hi se du song ji ji tne tam ji chap dal du no ma tabu yin bi chen na te tabu no ma ten zo hyare misal ge sang ji ji go dong hin khang ge nam ba le song yo ma re te yin na ya ta ba yi hi nga yi rang yin la te ni tabu no ma ten zo hya ge yo.
actually, it is discussed in the differentiating the consciousnesses and wisdoms, because it talks about how there are the 8 consciousnesses, but then when they're purified, there are the 5 wisdoms, and so this is what is taught here, and so the 5 wisdoms are in the nature. There are the pure appearances. We have the all-accomplishing wisdom, the discriminating wisdom, the wisdom of the mirror-like wisdom, and so forth. And so all of these wisdom each have their own functions. If you talk about the wisdom of equality, it's seeing the equalness or the equality of all phenomena, or the wisdom of the Dharma nature that is realizing the emptiness of all phenomena. In terms of relative truth, the all-accomplishing activity talks about how to perform the activity, but these come out of pure appearances. And so, although the bodies in the pure realms of the deities may not be actually direct or explicitly mentioned, the 5 wisdoms themselves are an appearance of or do arise as the pure appearances.
One quick question. In the 6th point of Thrangu Rinpoche's talk today, he talks about external, internal, and other. And he says, I wanted to ask about the internal, which is, I believe you said the world Vajra beings or Vajra world beings. External is external world. Internal, you said, I think, world Vajra beings, and other as being pure appearances of the Yidam deities. Did I get that right?
Chi nang shen sum shepe kaps de gondu chepa de such a drupagi on the chena. Chi nang shen sum laso be leper number chewe sumbe katsi. Nang de gang nguzungur best doji.
Nang dorji lu che jitin je kam. Nang dorji lu yin kin kor chen kolo.
Oh, that's so. The internal is the Vajra body. So the external is the external world. The internal is the Vajra body, and the other is the mandala of the deities.
Da te zo tuji kolu gomba chedu, da che sedu, teni da che se zam jitin je kam, da zada jukar ta ngara saye ta janso ta jeba chatan te chig noa de la che tuji kolu se. Nang tuji kolo si teni nang za oma tang roma tang jangma tang teni za yin kolo tang ta tenzo chasang la nang tuji kolo si teni ta ti takpa lan jirwe kapsa la teni tuji kolo ge jing koro teni la yaye kong teni gui jing koro tang song gu jing koro tang tuji jing koro tang dewa chimbi jing koro tang jing koro namba ye namba la kharwa ti tabi nwa la ta ti chino yin sam teni.
This is a teaching from the Kalachakra. And so in the Kalachakra, the external being the world, and so this is the stars, the planets, the oceans, and so all of these that are taught. This is the external Kalachakra. And then there is the internal. And the internal Vajra body is the central channel, the right channel, the plain channel, or the flavor channel, and the left channel, the plain channel, and then all of the chakras and so forth that are within the body. And then at the time that all of these become pure appearances, they appear as the mandala. And so there is the appearance of the palace. And so we have the mandala of the body, the mandala of the speech, the mandala of the mind, and the mandala of great bliss. And so these are all the pure appearances that arise. And so this is the thought of the Kalachakra.
Thank you.
Thank you for teaching, Rinpoche. Just kind of a practical question. When aware of the negativities, or when I'm aware of the negativities...
Rinpoche is asking, could you wait and ask your question tomorrow, please?
By all means.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, no, excuse me. I'm sorry. He's saying that, can you ask your question now? Others, please wait till tomorrow. You may ask your question.
Oh.
Go ahead.
When one is aware of the negativities that occur in the relative world, how does emptiness from Rangtong or perhaps Shentong point of view allow one to realize fruition of all of these practices and not be distracted from your practices by all that occurs, whether to you or around you? Is that clear?
I think so, yes. So, Chitan de Zamblin de la Nyingma dan Dolpopa mambo yores, de kaso de Rangtong dan Shentong ge tawa gi on de chena de jebu kiyeong be kaso de rang de ane chinangi chigi bache de semma yemper de kande yongre. De Chitan de Rangtong dan Shentong ge tawa la de chigi nepa da and it's all that in kande de semdi ma yemper.
생기 낀딩
Mane semdi chitande rangla ne peyores ne chiloge ne Nyingma Dharma da mambo yoro. Tene chilo ne Dharma da dupo mambo yoro. Tene de yebe kaso ne semdi ane ma yemper de la Rangtong la tene Rangtong da Shentong la tene.
다띵이 사고고 마서와 가이히
Okay. I didn't translate your question clearly, so can you repeat it for me so I can understand it again? Maybe tomorrow. Oh, that's a
Okay. When you're aware of the negativities that occur in relative world, how does emptiness from Rangtong and or Shentong point of view allow one to realize the fruition of your practices, what you want your practices to come to fruition to, and not be distracted from your practices by all that occurs in the relative world?
so, the Hyangja Chikinda. The Kunsup Gyondu Chena Tene de la Dupo Dang, Nyingma Mambo Yoro. Tene Chitan de Shentong Dang, Rangtong Gi Dawala Tene Lam Chebe Kasu Tene de Karesko de Dang, Lam de Nyingma Dang, and a Drebu Topagi Kasu de Kande Pengeres, Rangtong Dang Shentong Gi Dawadin. The Kunsup Gi Nupa Gi Nyingma.
야
Nyingma, Sem Nyingma.
군족 내봤다
Did so in around that in a Karas Lam Tan, Drebule, and a
남단 드레블라 띠니
Latin.
드는 기tin 찐틴라 둥할 사르타바
De Mare, the Chitan de Dunga Maboyores, Kakala and also the Dunga on Dupodela, Yingne de Lam Duktugumindoa.
야야
The De la Sem Nyingma in a Rangi Miu, Kande Dupores.
테라 다단다 다 지팅제 칸라 야부이나인다 두부이나인다 테라 노미 용기 와라라 노미 용아 테라 노미 또 트라버시 피게 탑 체퍼던 파파데 칸데레세나 테네 니히 체퍼진지 니히 체퍼진지 운니 타가랑 레 선배 니히 체퍼진지 요나 테니 테라 랑잉게 뉴그 tela ranking jugre la tini tig naming on shorg mare nihi cheparchinji mena tini tela tini naming on shorgre la tini junsin teacher na ta tanda tini zo kankal chigre sena tini nihi gu nihi de tini yenje trainla munjoba yenje trangdo mutup nihi cheparchi 아디 니히데 베 갈침보 이바 텐데 송요아레라 오마지그나 니히데 yenje trainla munjoba yenje trangdo moto pasedu yenje trainla munjo pasedu 제 ngarang gewihi songdudi yinha kandatil ngarantibu parsona te mai pandrabu 제 양파 te yenje trainla joba tende mai paji ngarang uni tagarang reso Yenji Trangdu Mudopa Sidu Kandi Segrisin, Tati Lavdu Tilla or Tati Winnie Demarindu San, Yan Yenda Te Mare, Te Chomevaris, or Tego Chomeva main reason Santa Vajana, Tiniti Yenji Trangdu, Tini Naransol Niki Kandi Gugorisin, Yenji Trainlam Jupa, Yenji Trangdu Mudopa, Niki Chibardi Gugore.
So, generally in this world, whether or not things are good or whether or not things are bad, there are many distractions that happen, many things that distract us. And so what is the best way to get rid of all these distractions? The best way to get rid of distractions is to have real, strong certainty, true certainty in something. It's to really think, that's how it is, and to know that's just how it is. And so, and if we have that sort of feeling, oh, that's exactly how it is, then naturally everything will work out, and we won't be distracted. But if we have that, then various things will happen. We'll just sort of lose ourselves to the distractions. And so, what is really important is this certainty. And when we talk about certainty, we need to have certainty that does not follow anyone, and certainty that isn't pulled away by anyone. And so here, this is very important that it said we need to have the certainty that's not just following someone else and that's not going to be pulled away by anyone else. And so what do we mean by this? When we say certainty that's not following anyone else, well, that means like when we're, maybe that's not the best. One moment. Or certainty that's not, it's not certainty that's not following, it's certainty that's not created by someone else, or not elicited by someone else. And so the example of this is like when we're near our teacher and the teacher says, this is how it is. You think, oh yeah, that's how it is. And then we go off someplace and we're all alone and we think, oh, maybe it's not like that. that's not the kind of certainty that we have. And then sometimes the certainty that can't be pulled away, that is the certainty that would be like, if it's something that can be pulled away, it's like you think one person says something and you say, oh yeah, that's really how it is, and then you go to someone else and he says, oh no, it's not like that, and you think, oh yeah, no, it's not like that either. So you need to we need to have this this certainty that's not elicited by anyone else and that can't be pulled away by anyone else. And so that's the type of real strong certainty that we absolutely have to have.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Shedro
Chine cho